studio, Dr. Georgina Gh Oduro. Good morning to you, Doc.
Good morning to you, Yoruba, and to our cherished listeners.
Yeah, it's great to have you. You know,
I
have to confess to my listeners that it has taken me a whole time to get you to the studio. You know, she's the busiest woman ever. But it's great to have you.
Yes, I'm also happy. And today is a Thursday. Remember, I'm here, so I'm really happy.
Oh, yes. So it's a day, you know. She's born on a Thursday, and I got her on a Thursday on the blog segment. Mm-hmm. That tells how amazing our conversation is going to be. So, people, we are live on Asasi Radio, and right about now, we are live on Facebook. So you can join us on Facebook via Asasi 100.3 Cape Coast. Yes, just go there, like this conversation, and share. Because I told you you're going to have a good time on this one. But I hope you were okay with our welcome address, the staircase. Yes. So, I mean, it's always a good time to ask about who the personality we are talking to, who that person is. And it will be great to know who Dr. Georgina Gh Oduro is. I mean, apart from the fact that we know you're a cigarette, can you tell us about something small about you, your early life, and that progress into becoming a director for a whole unit at the university?
Okay, so as I said, thanks to all our listeners. So Georgina Gh Oduro was born Georgina Gh Oten.
Okay.
Yes. So it means the Oduro is a borrowed name.
Automatically, we know how that comes about.
Was born Georgina Gh Oten. I was actually born in Tema, General Hospital, specifically in the early 70s. My dad worked with the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority Fire Service.
Gapoa?
Yes, and my mom was a trader at the Tema market, known as Cortes. I think it's still the same name. And then I grew up among, we are 6 in all. Okay. So I grew up with 4 brothers and a sister. And I'm the 4th born after 3 boys. And then I have another boy after me, and then the last being a girl. So there was a bit of a distance between the Faith, who is after me, and the girl. So I was actually an only girl among 4 boys for a very long time growing up, until I got a sister that I cherish so much.
Wow.
So that's a bit about me. So I also had my basic education in Tema, specifically community 2 at preparatory school. Those days we used to have this international schools preparatory school known as Arabs preparatory school, but it was popularly known as Mrs. Into because the proprietress was Mrs. Into, the name of them. So they ended up using the proprietress name for the school, and it was located around where people who know Agbemami, it's a popular restaurant where PV are being used. It was in that enclave. Okay. So that was where I was schooling, or I schooled. And at an early age of 10, I got sort of promotion step-ups. So my dad said, okay, the school wants you to try the common entrance. So try it and let's see what happens. So I tried it at quite an early age of 10, and I passed. So when I passed, my dad said, you're still so young to go to the boarding school. But this is Tema, with all its social vices, teenage pregnancies, a whole lot of things. So if you passed and you have admission, you should go. So my dad, we are from Aguna, Asafo, specifically close to Swedru. So my dad also went to Swed School. He was among the pioneers when the school was established in 1951 by Sadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Okay. One of the first government-assisted schools then. So my dad said, you're going to my school. I've selected Swed School for you, and then you will go. So,
I mean, those days, did we really have a say? I mean, Daddy says you were going and you had no say.
Yes, and all the way from Tema, I was packed. And at a point, he also said, but you're also too young for a boarding house. Why don't I try Tema School so that you be a day student and stay at home and then go? Then he will come back and say that, no, you go back to Swed School because because you are from Aguna area and your grandparents and others will be there to assist you if need be. So you go. So I had to come to Swed School. So I started Swed School in 1985. Wow. And then I finished O-level in 1990. That was a state form system. When you stay, you grew up in school actually. So 1990, I finished O level. I sat for the GC O level. Not many people may be familiar with that because now we have WASI and Co.
Okay.
And then sixth form, I came back. So 91 to 92, I did the sixth form. Then I passed also the A levels. Then I went to University of Ghana for my first degree. So that was from 93, supposed to be till 96. But we were among the batch that had a long year strike. It was by UTAG at the time, yes. It was known as Shadow Strike because the UTAG president then was known as Shadow. He was a classics lecturer at Legon, a very popular and powerful one for that matter. So we stayed home for a whole year. I think from 95 to 96 or 96, 97, thereabouts. So instead of those who had, Legon was 3 years university education because you come as a sixth former. So you start at level 200 to 400. Then later when it got to SS, then you start at 100. And then UCC was 4 years because you do the education. So diploma in education. So you graduate from UCC with 2 certificates, degree and diploma. Whereas Legon was 1. So we were having it for 3 years. And yeah, so I completed Legon in 97. And then
such a journey.
So my life has been like more schooling.
I can imagine.
So then, but during that time, you also do national service. So after sixth form, you have to do a year service before you enter university. And then after university, you do another year's national service. So I did my post-university national service. Where was it? In Cape Coast. Interestingly, my post-sixth form service was also in Cape Coast. Then I didn't know I was going to stay in Cape Coast for my career and for my life, actually. Because I was in Tema, and then going to Cape Coast was like a far journey. Where is Cape Coast? And I ended up doing, because I didn't school in Cape Coast. You know, most of the schools were in Cape Coast. So people were traveling to Adisco, Augustine's, Wesley Girls and others for school. But I didn't come to Cape Coast. So my sixth form national service and my degree national service brought me to Cape Coast. And I ended up getting married and staying in Cape Coast. And I've been a Cape Coaster since. So.
Wow. That explains it. So I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
It looks as if you've had an academic life.
Yes.
And you ended up in a university
environment.
Going higher, climbing higher the academic ladder, and then working in the university. Tell me how that journey of getting to head the Center for Gender Research, Advocacy and Documentation has been.
Okay, so I think there's a break we need to revisit and then I'll get back to that. So I'll say that I am a happily married woman with 4 children.
Wow.
It's a very important part of my identity and my life. Though I'm into gender, because people sometimes think that for straight and single women are into gender.
Thank you for correcting that. I mean, I love the way you start. You start on this journey. Anyway, don't go ahead.
So, but that's not always the case.
Okay.
And so so I married a bit early, my early 20s. But I would say that it's been an advantage for me instead of a disadvantage, because I've had other discussions on other radio stations, debates, where they've asked marriage and career, which comes first, and how may that disadvantage or advantage you. And my response has always been it's relative. It's very much about your circumstance. It's also very much about who your partner is and whether the person will encourage you or discourage you. So these support systems are important. So I married a bit early. So after my university, I actually got married.
Wow.
Then I had my 3 children in succession. They are all in school, though. They are all at the university level. And then I said, no, I love being academic. I love studying. So being married early is not going to end my
That's not going to deter you.
Not at all. And my husband also understood me because he's also an academic and he supported me. So I had these 3 children. Then I started the academic journey again.
Wow.
So
you were actually settled some way.
So after university, I started working with the university actually as an administrator.
Okay.
That was in 1999 January. I had my first child in 98. So when I was starting work at the university, my child was just 6 months old. So I call mine a winding career, not a straightforward one, because I've been a university administrator, then I've moved into academia. So there are times that I think that because of the winding nature of my career, it has retrogressed me a little, because if I straight away moved into academia, I should have been higher than where I am now. But I'm still grateful to God.
But you're so high. I mean, it's so easy.
I'm so very, very happy.
I mean, I always want to, I don't know, women who climb higher than ladder. I know how difficult it is.
Yeah.
Even when you start from, studying is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
And trying to master it, and then how does it feel like standing in the midst of your students and then talking to them? I know you can get some naughty ones trying to
yes, but I've missed that. I'll come back to that because it's important.
Okay.
But teaching, because when I was young, I never saw myself as a teacher. And when I finished Legon, actually, I was selected as a teaching assistant, which is a trajectory to being an academic.
Okay.
And I always told myself I'm never going to be an academic. So I went and then withdrew my candidature from the teaching assistantship at Legon, Department of Sociology, and my supervisor weren't happy at all. So later, when I wanted to pursue further studies, you need reference. Then I'll go back to him asking for reference. And he said, see, you got the opportunity to be with us. You said no, and you still want to pursue further studies. Well, that's another story. So, like I said, I didn't see myself as a teacher. So, working in a university environment as an administrator actually encouraged me, and then I realized that no, I had that potential, and this is actually what I want to do. So when I'm with my students, because they are, I'll say, comparatively mature students as university students, it's comparatively different from basic school teaching. Secondary school teaching, I've never experienced that, so I wouldn't be in a position to...
so that was a straight away thing.
Yeah, so mine was a university teaching from that level, and even that is because I worked as an administrator and observing that, I said, no, this is what I want to do, and then I shifted my career. But in terms of how I got there, because you asked that question earlier, after the first degree, and I married and I had these 3 children in succession, being in an academic environment and then knowing my potential, I graduated with a good class. I started exploring scholarship opportunities. So I will apply, then sometimes you get, other times you wouldn't get. So there was this university further studies opportunity by the Association of Commonwealth Universities. So I applied with the support of the university, and I got selected and awarded. So I went to the University of Westminster in London for my master's degree in human resource management. So I also call my journey like this, even in my disciplines. So I went there from 2003 to 2004 for a year. Then I came back to Ghana, and then I started working as a senior administrative assistant, because that's the qualification for first degree. So with the master's, I had the opportunity of moving ahead to assistant registrar. So in my career, I've been a senior administrative assistant, I've been an assistant registrar, and then I shifted into academia. As a researcher, as a lecturer. So with the master's and then coming back to the university and then working as an assistant registrar, I still had the edge that I wanted to continue. And then I started exploring myself opportunities. Also, my husband has studied outside and others, so we used to visit in and out, so I had that exposure. So I applied to the University of Cambridge in the UK for a PhD, and by God's grace, I got it.
Wow.
So that was from 2006 to 2010. So I went to do my PhD in Cambridge University in the UK. And after the PhD, then the qualification for assistant registrarship wasn't really PhD. So if I'm doing more research, then that is actually not the space for me. So I changed my career. So I applied as a lecturer, and then I moved into teaching. So since 2011, I returned in 2010 after the PhD, and since 2011, I've been teaching and researching.
Wow.
As an academic.
Wow.
Yes.
That's an amazing journey, especially for a woman. Especially for a woman. 'Cause I think you really have to position your mind that, hey, this is what I want to do. Okay, let's do this. And then being away, thinking about home.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was never easy because my children were quite young. I recall that my mom has passed, but whenever I'm speaking or saying or talking on this, I get emotional because she's been a real support. My mom said that my mom was brilliant as a young person, because then those who knew her will always say that she ran away from school, but because of her brilliance, the teachers will come after her and she wouldn't want to stay in school. So she didn't school that to a higher level. So when she had us, and by God's grace, we were brilliant academically, she said, all the school that I missed, you are going to do it for us.
Wow.
And the two girls, my younger sister, she's also a PhD holder. So when I had to further my studies, because it was after the first degree, all the others were outside, she always take care of my children. My husband was extremely supportive as well. And then my younger sister then. So family support was a big issue that saw to my success. And there was a paper I did, a paper I wrote, an academic paper I wrote as part of my career, the decisions we make, motherhood and international studentship. And in this paper, I shared my experiences. Because when I was leaving for my master's, my daughter, who is now a law student at Legon, turned 1 on a Thursday. Friday, I was on board a flight leaving Ghana.
Wow.
And it was tough. And
it will be tough. It will really be tough. I don't know whether you were okay when you had your seat in the flight and took off.
And then I said that Fantasy have this, they are saying, Jinshekan. That was a big support, something that propelled me, inspiration for me. So I said that this is difficult, but it's for the children's good. So while studying, I was that kind of person who wouldn't work along to make extra money, actually. I'd rather save on my stipend, because they were all scholarship, the master's, the PhD. So I'll save on my stipend, the least chance I'll come home to visit the children. Yes. I'll save and buy flights. When I see sales, British Airways, then I'll buy the flight for Easter. When I see sales, British for Christmas. So every year I was trying to come about twice. And then my husband, being an academic, he was traveling extensively, so he get to visit me. So with the children, the second child was actually born in the UK also.
Okay.
And then at a point when I finished and then we were going for the graduation, we took all of them there to get to know where mom and dad have been going in and out all these years. So I'll say that there was big support from my younger sister, from my husband, and from my mother. And then my father also, because then my father will allow my mom to leave him and come and stay with us to take care of the children.
Yes, so
that he also supported. So family support was great. So that got me focused, because I knew the children were in good hands. I could concentrate without being too worried.
Yes.
And then I'll call from time to time. It isn't like now we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp, we have all these virtual spaces. So virtually most of my money went into credit card, international calls to check on the children. I got took care of them.
Wow.
Yes.
Exactly. You got took care of them. People, we are live on Asasi 100.3 Cape Coast. And wondering who you are listening to. Okay, this is the Plug segment on Asasi Cafe, and it's an honor that finally I have Dr. Georgina Yaudru. Yeah, we're having a sweet talk, like we do always on the Plug segment. We bring seasoned personalities, talk about their lives, learn some lessons, and how to also achieve that height. And certainly that's the conversation we are having on the Plug segment. She is the director for Center
for Gender Research.
You know, it's a long one.
So Center for Gender Research, Advocacy and Documentation.
Oh my word. So, I think we should come down to that side of your life. Yes. You are a gender advocate, and I know you have lots of concern and responsibilities, especially for the girl child. Tell me how you became a gender advocate, and tell me about that journey into becoming one.
Great. So I will say that my PhD pushed me into this field because I started, as I said, as an administrator. I grew up with my brothers, and personally growing up, when you are into gender, I see it as how your personal experiences and then the structural system as a society come together to inform your agenda as a person, because we have different strands of feminists, and sometimes people want to distance themselves from that. They call the F word, distance themselves. So far as you are into advocacy, empowerment, speaking on behalf of girls, women, or all marginalized vulnerable groups, you are a feminist of a kind. But we have different strands of feminists. There's a book, Rosemary Tong, 1998, argues that we have about 12 different forms and more global feminists, eco-feminists who are into the environment, radical feminists who sometimes they're extreme, and even within that we have different strands. So radicals, sometimes they say that male separatism, we want to separate ourselves from the men. They are our woes. Patriarchy is the challenge for women. We have socialist Marxist feminists, we have liberal feminists, all black feminists, post-colonial feminists, African feminists, on and on and on. I identify more as a liberal feminist. And with liberal feminism, you use existing structures to fight for the empowerment of women.
Okay.